Welcome to Damon Does, your nerd space safe place. I am Damon, father of two, husband of one, and leader of this here Demodcast. My guest is a spoken word artist and activist. His fusion of poetics and visual arts has appeared at Bucknell University and Def Poetry Jam. His graphic novel, Pawnshop, is now on pre-order everywhere you can order other fine books. Give it up for Lindo!
Hey, what's poppin'? What's good? Thank you for such a nice intro. I appreciate that.
Thank you for taking time out to talk to a perfect stranger. How we doing?
I'm doing good.
Excellent, excellent. Um, Before we get into the 6 questions, where would you like to be found on the internet?
Instagram. Instagram is where anyone can find me at Lindo. Yes, that's LINDOYES.
Perfect, perfect. I listened to your couple interviews. I discovered you through Blurred on the Street with the ladies from there, and
Yeah,
then
shout out to them.
yeah, absolutely. And then I do a search. I'm like, oh, you were on Blurred Bar too. So I listened to that this morning. And you said something on their show. What was it? It was trying to do the least collateral damage. Was that what it was?
Yeah, I was on a date, and in the date, my date has said something along the lines of just like we all in this world trying to cause the least collateral damage, and that inspired the book Pawn Shop because I was thinking about just like how a lot of times when people are going to the pawn shop, they're trying to reduce the harm in their life because they're acting out of urgency, emergency, and necessity, and it is it's it is the pawning of something, just the same way we pawn emotions.
Mm, that's really cool. That's really cool. Lindo, are you ready to answer the six
Mhm.
questions?
Yes, I am ready.
Question number one.
Mhm.
When did you know you wanted to be a poet?
I think I've been poeting a lot longer than I would think of myself because I always had like social anxiety where I was rehearsing conversations in my head to just like make sure that my experience with others were better. And that led to people saying like, "Oh, you know what you said, sound really poetic." And then, by the time I was finishing high school, I was like, I think this is the thing I want to do. I think I want to be a poet because it was the closest thing to feeling like I had a superpower because I had control over the conversation. I was able to leave the best impression of myself, and I liked that it was giving me positive attention, you know?
So, Pawn Shop comes from your poetry, is that correct?
Yes, it does come from my poetry. It comes from two poems in particular. One is called Cupid G, the other one is called Trigger Warning, and they're both around mental health. One dealing with the grief that comes from heartbreak, and the other one deals with just like depression. But in the world of pawn shop, they manifest into these entities that function like social workers or couple therapists. So we have cupids that are going around the world helping people be in the best romance as possible, as well as helping people in heartbreak. So you can think of them as couple therapists. And then we have emojis who are going around like social workers, making sure people are in the best spaces to, in their pursuit of happiness.
You don't do the artwork, but I think I remember you saying that you see your poetry in your mind and kind of tell people what you see. Did I get that right? Because I may have to
Yeah,
edit
you
this
did
out.
you did get that right. I'm dyslexic, so for the longest, I have the aversion to reading and writing because of just like how much humiliation it has led to me or became a barrier for the expression I wanted to have of myself. So a lot of times when I'm creating poetry, I'm often just narrating the motion in my head of just like all the things I'm seeing. So I don't write down a lot of my poetry. I'm just really narrating what I see in my head. I edit in my head, and then I say it in public and I perform it. And so like when I was creating this graphic novel Pawnshop, a lot of that made me realize that I didn't have to be in isolation and that there were several different types of tools that I could use as a person who is dyslexic to make sure that the writing was on point so the illustrators as well as the readers could fully understand my thoughts. But I think what really always helped me is because I'm often seeing, my poem in motion. It was easy for me to tell the illustrators what was the animation of it because already there was an action in my head because of just the way I think when I'm doing poetry.
Wow, that's really cool. That's really cool.
Thanks.
Question number 2. What do you wish you had known when you first started out?
That the end goal is not going to always look like what you initially think of it. And it looks like several different things. When I first started doing poetry, I thought like, all I'm going to do is perform poetry and maybe put out a book ever so often, a book of poetry. But what actually ended up happening was I was teaching poetry, I was helping people put together poetry events, I was performing poetry, I was creating content online related to my poetry, and now I'm a comic book writer because of my poetry. So it was a lot of different things versus just that one thing I thought it was. And I think for me, it always been about like allowing my plan, Z to B, make my A work. So the A was always to do poetry, and Z through B was to everything else to help that become a bigger, bigger, bigger part of my life.
What is the most surprising B to Z that you wound up doing? You're like, huh? How did I get here?
Doing a commercial for Community College Philadelphia. They reached out to me and they said, "Can you do a poem for our college?" I did, and then they was like, "We're gonna shoot a commercial for that." I was like, "Oh snap!" I didn't think this would be a thing, doing a my poem becoming a commercial, and it was really really successful. So that was something new, and I have always been, a blur and someone that was really into just like animation, anime, comic books. And I always added an aspect of what I would consider fantastical to, my poetry, where, if I'm talking about heartbreak, there's a level of time travel in it. If I talking about depression, there's a sense of just like some type of just like extraordinary to explain the ordinary experience that we have. But I never necessarily thought of myself as being able to put out a comic book until in the recent years when I was given the opportunity, and I thought started thinking of my poetry as not just being performed on stage, but how much can I create poetry that go really well with images, really go well with animation?
So have those things helped you become a better poet?
Yeah, I think in ways me being dyslexic has been definitely a gift because it's easier for me to get to the point where I feel performance ready than, I think some other poets that are performance based. But also, I think because I'm often seeing the images in my head and just narrating it for people, it allows me to really put them together easily with images, because I'm already having images in my mind. So I'm just like, all right, this artwork really, really works. So it definitely has been a gift. And I think also, you know, I'm not the only one with dyslexia, or I'm not the only one that feels as though like too many words on page can sometimes create a barrier. So I think, me pairing my poetry with images allows other people to see themselves in a space that they felt uncomfortable or just wanted a different way in. Just wanted a different way in. So I think, this graphic novel Pawn Shop does that where we're talking about mental health, we're talking about collective care, and we're using poetry, but we're using poetry as a vehicle, but the real gas of it is the illustrations that allows a few words become 1,000 plus words.
Question number 3. What's your go-to order at your favorite hometown restaurant?
Oh, I'm a big fan of a chicken cheesesteak, even though I stopped eating it a little bit because I got some body and health goals. But I love a chicken cheesesteak with salt, pepper, ketchup, mayo with a smoothie. That's my thing. A good mango smoothie is always great for me. So I definitely go to the pizza shop near me, and then I hit up the fruit truck, and then those that's a great night for me.
Question number 4. What are you curious about?
I'm really excited to see what people reactions are going to be to Pawn Shop. Coming from the open mic scene where, you can create a poem and then find a poetry open mic that night, you get a lot of instant gratification of just like how people responding to something that I created. How's my art working? With this graphic novel, this being so much time in the making, I really don't know how people are going to respond to it. I got to gauge because, I got feedback from other people constantly in conversations like we are now. And, I do trust the process. It leads to a lot of just like curiosity for me, where it's just like, man, but when people get this book in their hand and they read it, how are they going to feel as they read each chapter and they finish the book? So I can't wait for that. That has piqued my curiosity and make me feel really like thrilled to finally be at this stage of the process of Pawn Shop.
Question number 5. What should I ask you that I didn't know enough to ask?
I do a fair amount of magic. Magic has been my thing lately. I've been hanging around with a lot of magicians in Philadelphia. Philadelphia has a lot of black magicians and also just a very welcoming magic community. And hanging around with these folks allow me to just like amplify my poetry in ways that I have never thought about before because I've been pairing my poetry with magic. So people are able to hear a poem about different social issues while seeing a magic trick that helps them add levity to the heaviness of that poem, or just really amplify it in ways that you only can imagine through magic.
That sounds dope as hell, man. That's amazing. As soon as you said match, I'm like,
Yeah.
ooh.
It's been a lot of fun. I've been partnering up with this company called Philly Magic, and they are all about just like amplifying the Philly scene and archiving, the magic that's in the city of Philadelphia, while also putting out really good shows that are unlike others, in the sense of just like you can't categorize this magic show. A lot of times people think of just magic being for kids, or they think of it as being just like an icebreaker for a conversation because of the all factor. What we're able to do is say, we're going to spark conversation that is going to leave a fire in you that you're going to wonder not only how it has ignited you in new ways, but it's going to activate you in your own story of your life because of just like how much we have thought through the impression of both these art forms.
Wow, this man, you are such a multi you are such a multifaceted artist. Like I did some research and I'm like I was really excited anyway. And then it just keeps going and going. It's like a kaleidoscope of and of depth. It's that's wild, man. I guess I'm done gushing now.
Yeah.
That's really dope, man. Question number 6. If you could create a new holiday, what would it commemorate?
A day of rest. I think a lot of times people only see their value in being able to produce something, being able to do some form of work. And I think a lot of times the order to do the work that's essential in our life, we need to recognize that we have to be unproductive. We just have to relax. We just have to rest. Just have to do something that's more reservational. Or I'm mispronouncing that word, but it's just in our leisure. You know, it has nothing else to do besides like this is just a fun activity. That's it. It doesn't pay the bills or nothing. It was just fun. you know? And I think that's really important that we find moments in our life, and I think a day dedicated for that will really help us locate more of those moments.
What day would you make it?
I don't know. I want to say April 1st because I'm not a big fan of April Fools. Uh, and I think that's such a good point of the calendar year to just sit down and reflect of just like the first day of April of just, saying to ourselves, "Whew, let's rest." Let's rest, relax, and do something for leisure. So yeah, I think I'll go with April 1st
I have one last question. Why create?
because the immediate will fill you with so much dismay of what's possible that creating is the only imaginative way to enact so many other possibilities in your immediate circumstances. Because if we do not have the Power Ranger with uh their intercom morphers watches, I don't know if we get an Apple Watch.
That is a good point.
Like at that time, we did have, they in the world there were intercom systems, but it just being just on your wrist was something that had to be imagined first, and then I think it was enacted on.
That is a good freaking point. There's an old movie that I don't know if many people even remember. It had Mick Jagger in it. It was called Free Jack,
Okay.
and it was I want to say it was mid to late '80s, and they were talking on screens like we are now. And I remember watching and going, "Huh, I wonder if that'll ever happen." So it's funny that you brought the morphers up because that's a good point. It's amazing how it can flow into everything, like kind of like your poetry. It has so many branches that it branches off into just having that focus. It's like
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Lindo, thank you very much. I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
No, no problem. Thank you so much for just finding time and being flexible and allowing me space to talk, one, about my poetry, two, about my magic, but significantly right now in this moment of just like Pawnshop being available for pre-orders at wherever you get books at, is all at all retail stores. It's significant because it amplifies this project in ways that money can't buy. And I want people to read this book because I know that it will allow people to see themselves in ways they only could imagine, to allow them to enact on a better now.
Thank you once again for joining us, whether it's your first time or this time for the 6 questions. If you like the show, tell the world. Please jump on your podcast app and leave a 5-star review and tell your friends. That's the best way to grow the show, and more can join the conversation. And until next time, see it, hear it, speak it,